Good evening to the people living in this region, and good morning to the people living on the other side of the world. Welcome all to the 21st installment of the Mentoring Talks, a central pillar of our transformative education drive at the American University of Beirut, right here in Lebanon. For those yet unacquainted, the Mentoring Talks is a series of presentations given by accomplished professionals from a variety of backgrounds. What differentiates our initiatives from other mentorships is that we do not focus on the glorious moments of our guest star-studded lives. Rather, we do quite the opposite, focusing on the gray areas, the disappointments, and the shortcomings. The point of this focus is not to discourage our viewers with tales of woe, but to show them that failure is an integral part of success. From the point of view of the mentors, failure is not the end of their journey, but rather the very beginning. Since our very first mentoring talk on October 19, 2016, and until today, and especially during these dire conditions in Lebanon, our mentoring talks always aim to prove to everyone that it is fundamental to have ups and downs, victories and losses, hope and hopelessness in order to win. It shows the young generation that there will be no accomplishment without hard work, there will be no contentment without disappointments, and there will never be successes without failures. I always say we should never question our purpose, even when our biggest thrill turned out to be our greatest disappointment and utmost lesson. And as our distinguished speaker says, it's okay to fail. Today, I am very pleased to welcome the Syrian-Canadian strategist, digital anthropologist, and New York Times best-selling author, Professor Rahaf Harfoush. She was very young when her family decided to move from Syria to Canada because of the conflicts that were occurring, a decision that completely changed her future. In fact, she considers herself lucky enough to have caught her train. But she finds it difficult to think about the less fortunate that were left behind, about their despair and their struggles. Growing up, Dr. Harfoush was striving to choose a career path because she wanted to do so many things. But her hard work allowed her to work in every field she was interested in and to be successful in all of them. Indeed, she is executive director of the Red Thread Institute of Digital Culture. Her clients include UNESCO, Facebook, Google, IBM, and many more. She teaches innovation and emerging business models at Sciences Po School of Management and Innovation in Paris. Dr. Harfoush is also a member of France's National Digital Council, as well as a visiting policy fellow at the Oxford Internet Institute. Her hard work allowed her to be named a young global changer at the G20 Think Tank Summit and be selected as one of the top 30 future thinkers by the prestigious Hay Literary Festival. Dr. Harfoush has been featured in TED, Harvard Business Review, Wired Magazine, MIT Technology Review, Fast Company, Forbes, and many more. And formerly, Dr. Harfoush was the Associate Director of the Technology Pioneering Program at the World Economic Forum in Geneva. Well, Dr. Harfoush proved that no matter how difficult our goals are, hard work does pay off. So without further ado, let us see what we can learn from adversity by inviting Professor Harfoush herself to take the floor. Rahaf, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm so happy to be able to be here with you. I really firmly believe in the importance of mentorship because I, in my own career, have had so many people open up their networks, their expertise, their insights, their support when I was developing my career. And I truly believe that you cannot build a successful career without the generosity of that community. And so it's part of my work that I always like to give back and help and be as helpful as I can to you, just as so many people were so kind to me in my career. And what I thought I would do is I've been reflecting a lot about this theme of failure for this talk. And I thought, okay, well, what would I have wanted to hear when I was in university? And so the way I'm going to structure this is I'm going to tell you like 5 things that I really wish somebody had told me at an earlier stage of my career in hopes that they will help you. Um, I've been doing a lot of very different things for my career, and I have had so many failures, so many disappointments, so many doors that have been closed, so many opportunities that were missed. And in the moment, they always feel so devastating. But my dad always used to say, he used to have this expression where he says, "The dogs bark and the caravan passes," meaning even the most intense emotions, even the most upset that you'll be, it will eventually pass, which was a really great perspective. However, I want to start by a really useful piece of advice that was given to me that I'm sharing with you, which has really changed the way that I look at failures. So, one, I know that it is like very, I don't know, like very popular to be like, forget failure or it's okay to fail. And I agree with that somewhat, but there's also a bunch of things that I don't agree with about that statement. So, instead of failing, I would say that we should forget failing and we should focus on developing an experimental mindset. Because what I don't like when people say, oh, like you can fail fast, fail often, is they don't often tell you that like there's a lot of different reasons why somebody could fail, right? On one hand, you could have somebody who tried their best, who really put in their top effort, and then for a variety of reasons didn't quite make it, and it's a learning opportunity. And you can also have people that fail because they didn't take the time to prepare properly, or they didn't apply themselves to the best of their abilities, or there's a lot of different reasons for people to fail. So whenever I'm working with my coaching clients or my students, I always tell them you have to distinguish between the reasons behind your failure. Because if you failed because you didn't try your best or you weren't prepared, well, I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say good job on not being well prepared, great job on, not doing everything you can to take advantage of this opportunity. However, if you failed because you were testing out a hypothesis, you wanted to try a new product and you really gave it your all, or you wanted to apply to a job, or you wanted to submit a book proposal, and you genuinely gave it your best effort, you not making it or not getting the result that you need is just another information point. It is just a learning opportunity. And I think those are two very, very different outcomes. So I'll give you an example. One, after I published my first book, I was really excited to work on another book right away. And I put together a proposal and I worked on it for weeks, and it was just something that I was really proud of. And then I went around to try to shop it around, and every single person said no. It was like, we're not interested, this isn't relevant, why would anyone want to read this? And that was like a really hard thing to hear, especially when you've had some success and then you want to keep going and suddenly it feels like doors were being slammed in my face. Well, I don't consider this to be a failure due to lack of preparation. I really gave it my best effort. To me, this was just a learning opportunity because I realized that there was something about what I was trying to produce for the market that wasn't resonating with people. And going back and, getting some advice and learning and seeing how I could improve, what ended up happening was I realized that, oh, I wasn't fully clear in the proposal who this book is for. I wasn't clear about how it fit in the market. I wasn't clear about how it could help people. I just had a really great idea and I said, oh, I'm just going to, put a book proposal together and sell it. And so this was a really big experience for me because, you know, you really have to have a thick skin as a writer because you will send out a book proposal and then in an hour you'll have like 15 people being like, no, no, not for us. No, thanks. This is not good enough. This doesn't fit our portfolio. And if you don't take it as a learning opportunity, you might think to yourself, I'm a terrible writer forever and I'm just never going to try again. And I think this is a really important distinction because now when I'm trying something new, I always think to myself, what is the hypothesis that I'm testing out here? What is the experiment? You know, how am I challenging myself, or how am I going to try something new and grow? Because if you do it that way, then you'll realize that learning, like from your failures or from the results of your experiment, you are going to get better and you are going to produce a higher quality output in the future. I mean, when you look at history, I can't think of a single invention or idea or breakthrough that somebody got right away. Every invention, every new idea went through so many different iterations. So my first point is to really forget about failing and instead focus on developing this experimental mindset. Because if you don't have an experimental mindset, then you'll get scared of failing and then you just won't try, which will mean you'll stagnate and then you will not continue to grow and add value. Now, the second big thing, which is about how failure can impact your productivity, is something that I really wish I learned earlier, which is you are not your job, and your identity and your self worth as a human being is not actually linked to your professional title or your accomplishments. I learned this the hard way a couple of years ago after I had published a second book, which I ended up being successful despite all the early rejections. I experienced an episode of burnout that was honestly absolutely debilitating. I had my hair fall out, I had insomnia, I had adrenaline levels and cortisol levels that were like off the charts. My doctor was like, you are going to make yourself very sick if you continue. And the worst part of this burnout, because I had just released a new book, I was building my business, was that for a period of several months, I couldn't work. I couldn't write. I couldn't research. I couldn't talk to clients. I did not have the energy to do anything. And as somebody who, up until that point, had very strongly linked my identity to my professional accomplishments, it was absolutely devastating. And if you think about it, when you talk about yourself, when you write your bio on LinkedIn, you know, how do you phrase it, right? It says, even when you heard the introduction today, it says, you know, Rahaf is a digital anthropologist. Rahaf is a writer. Rahaf is a professor. So all of a sudden, imagine that for your entire life, you were like, I am a writer. That's what I am. I am a writer. And then you suddenly are incapable of writing. I felt like I broke my brain. No ideas, no words, no anything. What's left? And I went into a tailspin. I was depressed, like super depressed, because I didn't know who I was if I didn't have this title of writer or author or professor to hide behind. And what I learned from that experience was that we have become so obsessed with identifying our self worth through our jobs, and that it's not a good idea, because if anything happens to your job, then suddenly your sense of self-worth is gone. And so I had to learn, as I recovered slowly from my burnout, that I had to be okay with the sentence of just Rahaf is, period. Who was I if I wasn't doing all these professional things, and did it matter? And did I matter? And was I worth it? And was I worthy? And I slowly realized that who I am as a person has nothing to do with my accomplishments, that the people in my life that love me and support me will love me and support me, even if I don't write another book, even if I write a book and it fails, even if I don't land a project, even if I don't get on that Forbes 30 under 30 list, even if I don't have 100 million Instagram followers, or, you know, followers across social media. The people that really love me and that matter to me love me for my kindness and love me for the love that I have for them and the relationships and the community that we built. But I want to say this to you because it took me almost making myself sick from working so hard to realize just how messed up our current work culture is and how often we tell people, if you just work hard enough, you'll be successful. If you just work hard enough, you'll be successful. And I have to tell you, like, that's actually not true. There are lots of people who work very, very hard, but who aren't successful. And it's not because they're not working hard enough, it's because the success equation is so much more complex than we're told. It's not hard work equals success. It's hard work plus luck, plus timing, plus access to opportunities, plus your gender, plus the family that you're born into, plus whether or not you can have access to healthcare. Like, all of those things are a part of success. I mean, I can tell you, I worked very hard. I studied hard. I worked my way through school. I did all of that. But I wouldn't be where I was today if my parents hadn't made the move to Canada. If I wasn't lucky enough to be born into a family that encouraged me to pursue an education. And that doesn't mean that you don't work hard. It doesn't mean that you don't try your best. It doesn't mean that you grow and you push your limits and you try to see what you're made of. What this means is that you remove this narrative that says, if I'm not successful, the only reason must be because I'm not working hard enough. Because that is very toxic and that's very damaging. And the World Health Organization is categorizing burnout and exhaustion as a global issue and as a workplace hazard. And so, what I learned during my experience of burnout was that the people that really matter don't care what you do for a living, and that you should not tie your self worth or who you are to these professional accomplishments. And I say this because I love what I do. I love what I do. I'm so passionate about my work, but I no longer believe that I was put on this planet to write about technology. I was not put on this planet to, be an expert in social media and in emerging tech. Billions of years of evolutions, all my ancestors, all the different points in time that made me being here possible does not mean that my grand capital P purpose in life is to actually just be a worker. It is to learn and love and experience and grow and maybe leave the world a little bit better than what I found it. And everything else is different. Now, the reason I say this to you is because if you are so tied up with your self esteem to your professional accomplishments, then you're going to be very scared to take any risks that jeopardize that. You're not going to want to fail. You're not going to want to grow. You're not going to want to test new things. You're not going to want to try new things because if you fail and if you've tied your sense of self worth to your accomplishments, then that means that your sense of self worth takes a hit. So, what I notice in my work is that people that have a strong ego tied to their professional identity are often less likely to try new things, to experiment, to take risks because they're so afraid that their entire identity will be shattered. And that is just something that will prevent you from actually going out there and being better at your job. So if you treat it as a learning opportunity, as an experiment, if you separate your productivity from your identity, then what will happen is you'll say, I'm going to take this opportunity. I'm going to take a risk because I know that it's only by taking risks that I'm going to learn something new about myself, that I'm going to learn something new about the world, that I'm going to learn something new about my industry, about the market. I'm going to spot new opportunities. You're not going to do any of those things by just continuing to do the same thing and think the same way and try the same activities day after day. That's just not how innovation works. But we have to get to the root cause of it, which means you have to ask yourself, who am I if I'm not a university student? Who am I if I'm not an A student? Who am I if I'm not, pre-med, if I'm not a doctor? Who am I if I'm not a professor? Who am I if I don't get this award? And the answer is that you are you and you are enough and you are worth it, period. And the counterintuitive thing, the funniest thing is that once I had let go of all of my ego and I said, look, it's possible. It might be possible that I'm never going to write anything ever again. I don't know. As soon as I let that go, as soon as I let go this idea that who I was so linked to what I did, that's when I started getting curious about the world. That's when I started actually exploring different avenues, exploring different opportunities, which ended up being the research for a book that I would publish several years later. And if I had never let go of that resistance, I wouldn't have written this book, because my third book, Hustle and Float, was a complete departure from the books that I wrote before. And so it ended up being the most important work that I've done so far. I'm so proud of this book. And it never would have happened if I had held on so tightly to the idea that I'm a technology writer, I'm a digital anthropologist, this is what I do, this is who I am. Everything that came after that would not have happened, including opportunities to speak, opportunities to work on projects that I never would have dreamed of. All of those things were only made possible once I let go of that ego, once I let go of that. The third thing is that I really believe that nobody is thinking about you at all. Everyone's just so busy thinking about their own world and their own failures and their own disappointments. Nobody is looking at you going like, look at this person, I'm going to watch them so closely, which means we spend so much of our lives worried about what other people are going to think of us that we don't actually just go out there and live our lives. I remember I was taking a little bit of a break, and I write business books and nonfiction books, and I realized I really want to write fiction. I really want to go into a whole different direction, and I want to write fiction. I want to write stories about serial killers and murder mysteries, and like that's what I wanted to do. So I wrote a draft of a novel and I sent it off. I was so excited. I sent it off to a bunch of agents that I knew, and I had this one lady named Linda, and she wrote me like the harshest email that you could think. She was like, this is terrible and nobody's going to want to read this book, and like I don't even know, I mean, it was just like a really awful email. I actually like cried and then like went and lay down in my bed and was like, I'm just not going to write anymore. I'm an awful writer. And then my husband comes into the room and he was like, who is Linda? And I was like, oh, she's an editor, blah, blah. And he was like, no, who is Linda? There are 8 billion people in the world. And you're going to let Linda, just this one lady named Linda, you're going to let her control your life. You're going to let her just stop you from writing. She's one person. You don't even know her. It could have been a bad day, like whatever the reason is. Like, because I was like, I'm just never going to write fiction again, ever. And then that made me really think, why do we give so much credibility to people that we don't know? You make a video on YouTube and somebody says that's dumb, and it's like, who is this person? Who is, I don't know, Green Rabbit 445? Like, who is this person that we're giving such weight to their opinions? And so what I would recommend is another tip that I got, which is you take a Post-it note and you write down the opinions of the people that actually matter to you. So your best friend, your partner, a trusted mentor, people that you know love you, and those are the opinions that you care about. All the shouting on social media, all these anonymous comments on social media, all these opinions, like I no longer read reviews about my work. You can love my work and give it 5 stars. You can hate my work and give it 1 star. I realize that there's only a handful of people whose opinions I really care about. I have experts that are helping me get better at my skill sets and growing and learning. I have people I trust to give me feedback who have my best interests at heart. But why are we wasting our time with what random people we don't know commenting about us trying? And I heard something that really stuck with me, which says you will never be criticized by somebody who is doing more than you. So if you are trying to write a book, and I actually think this as a writer, when I hear somebody is writing a new book or somebody is trying to do something creative, I'm not going to criticize them. I'm going to encourage them, because as somebody who's done it, I know how hard it is. But do you know who's going to discourage you? People that aren't doing it. They're going to sit behind their keyboards and make some comments, and they're going to be like, this is dumb, or who do you think you are, launching a podcast or starting a business or doing this product or doing this research, and they're not doing it themselves. So really focus on the opinions of people that matter, and remember, like, don't let the Linda in your life, like do not let the Linda in your life stop you from moving forward. And I'm so glad I kept going because I ended up publishing my novel under a pen name earlier this year. And that was something that I was super proud of. And to think that I almost never published it because some woman I never met at some agency decided she didn't like it. And I decided that her opinion mattered so much. The last thing I'm going to say to you is I have been doing a lot of work on myself, and I think that everybody should be working on themselves. I think the greatest gift that you can give yourself is to learn and to understand your limited beliefs, to understand your hidden assumptions, and to really challenge yourself to grow and to be the best person that you can be. There is a process that's called reparenting. And reparenting basically means that when you're a kid, when every single one of us, by the way, every single person watching this has had something happen to you in your childhood that just taught you about the way that the world is. And we don't know if that's true or that's not true, but every single one of us has experienced something in our childhoods that taught us or informed our worldview. Now, the thing is that oftentimes this happens to you as a child, so you don't have the context as an adult to be able to say, okay, I understand why this person might have said something to me. I understand why that person, or why this might have happened. You're a kid. But what happens is that your beliefs as a child end up carrying through to your adult self, and then you end up believing things about yourself that you never even challenged, that you don't challenge yourself. And I'll give you like the silliest example, but I'm going to tell you because we're talking about failures, and this was just like a really funny moment for me. So when I was in grade 3, somebody said to me, another grade 3 student, somebody said to me, you have a really small mouth and you shouldn't wear lipstick. And this was, I mean, whatever. How old are you when you're in grade 3? Like 8? No, I don't know, whatever. Nobody knows how old you are. The point is this was very hurtful for me as a child. And in my head, I just thought, okay, well, I just don't wear lipstick. And I kid you not, for like 25 years, I never wore lipstick. And it wasn't like it was a hurtful memory, or it wasn't like I was sad about it. It was just an assumption, like I don't wear lipstick. And then I was with a girlfriend the other day, and several years later, and we were at the store, and she's like, "Oh, try on this lipstick, try it on." And I tried it on, and she's like, "Oh, you look really good. That looks really nice." And I'm wearing lipstick today, as you can see. And I was like, "Oh," and what I said was, "Oh, I don't wear lipstick." And then she said, "Why?" And I stopped and I was like, "Yeah, why? Why don't I wear lipstick?" And I kid you not, I had totally forgotten about this incident. I had not even thought twice about it. But what I had kept was this idea that I shouldn't wear lipstick. And I never even challenged myself to see, is this still true? Or is this something that is important? And I see this with my students all the time. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at languages. I'm not athletic. I can't write this book. I can't go into business on my own. I can't open my own medical practice. I can't choose a different major. And when you actually stop and you're like, wait a minute, where did this belief come from? You go back and you realize someone said something to you at some point, maybe in passing, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally. And then you took that comment and you turned it into a belief, and that belief became a part of your identity. So the next time you are thinking something about yourself, really take a pause and say, where does this belief come from? And reparenting is this idea where you revisit all of these assumptions to try to see, like, what did I bring with me in terms of belief systems about what I can do, about what the world is like? What do I want to keep? And what is no longer serving me? And what is no longer serving you, you can let go. But imagine you are like an iPhone, okay? If you don't update the OS, the programming that runs in the background, then it will impact the types of applications that you install on the OS. So you have to sometimes go into the chatter that's in the background, the assumptions that's in the background, and you will find that there are people in your lives that you trust, things that your parents said to you, things that your teacher said to you, things that your best friend said to you, things that some random girl in grade 3 said to you, that just got locked in there. And once they get locked in there, if you never question them, it just becomes the truth. And then you don't even think that something is wrong because you've never questioned yourself. It's like fish swimming in water, not knowing what water is, or like us breathing oxygen, not thinking twice about the oxygen that we breathe. So, what I think is really important for us to do is to constantly challenge our assumptions about who we are and what we can do. Anytime you find yourself thinking, I can't or I am with certainty, stop and ask yourself, okay, like, where did this come from? And once I started doing it, there were so many different things that came up. Like, I thought for years I wasn't athletic, right? Like, I'm not athletic. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Because going backwards in junior high, when you were like an awkward preteen, we had to do these gym exercises in front of everybody in the class. We had to like run a kilometer or whatever. And you know, you're awkward and you're going through puberty. And then, like, that was such an awful experience for me that I just thought, I'm not athletic, period. It took me years to get back and say, no, actually, I am. I actually enjoy physical activity. And this has happened all over the place. Every time I've thought to myself, I can't start my business. I can't move to a new country and accept a job in Switzerland. I can't leave that great job in Switzerland and start a new business in Paris. I can't write a book. I can't write a novel. I can't start a podcast. I can't make a video. Every time I hear myself saying I can't, which I have all the time, I go back and I try to figure out, where did this belief come from? Is it true? Who said this to me? How old was I? How did it make me feel? And every single time I've managed to break that belief, I've managed to say, you know what? I'm going to try. And then you try. And then sometimes it takes one draft, sometimes it takes 5 drafts, sometimes the job is awful, sometimes the client project explodes. But you know what? It doesn't matter, because you are then making your own identity about yourself. Now, to end, because I would love to hear people's questions and really have a good conversations, I want to tell you about a book that really, really changed my life. And this is a book called The 5 Regrets of the Dying. And it was written by a nurse named Bronnie Ware, who worked at a hospice. So this woman was at the bedside of hundreds of patients at the end of their lives, people who were dying or suffering from terminal illnesses. And so she was there to hear their last regrets. And she said that most people have like the same types of regrets. There are 5. So it's 1, I wish that I had lived a life that was more in tune with who I was. I wish I had spent more time with family and friends. I wish I had taken better care of my health. I wish I had let myself be happy. And I wish that I don't remember the 5th one, but basically, the regret, when people are at the end of their lives, they're not saying, man, I wish I spent more time at the office. Man, I wish I had called my parents less. Man, I wish I'd prioritized my friendships less. Man, I'm so upset I wrote that novel. I'm so upset I launched that business. It's like, no, people regret not taking chances on themselves, and people regret not giving themselves permission to be happy. So give yourself permission to be happy. And you do that by saying, I'm not my job, I'm not my inboxes, I'm not my successes, I'm not my failures. Who you are as a human being moving through this world is such a beautiful experience, that you are unique, right? And so don't waste time worrying about whether or not you fail, or whether or not you make the list, or whether or not you get the promotion, because at the end of your long life, you look back and what's going to be important. And so I think that we should take every opportunity to learn and to grow. I don't think it makes sense to compare ourselves with anybody. I think if you feel envy towards somebody, then that is a great like insight for you to go learn from them. I learned that if I saw somebody doing something on social media, or like somebody released a book and I felt envious, that meant that there was something for me to learn from that person. And I got into the habit of emailing that person and saying, hey, I just saw that you had a really successful book launch. My book launch was not that successful. I see that you've had a really successful book launch. Can you tell me what you did? Can you give me some of your best advice? And you know what? Like 90% of the time, these people respond and actually share information with you, because you're not really competing. Competition is kind of like a lie. Everyone's on their own path and their own timing. So you're never too late. You're never too early. You're just moving at your speed. And I wish somebody had told me that earlier, because I missed on so many opportunities of reaching out to people and asking them for insight and asking them for help, and instead just being like, ugh, I hate that person because they're doing so well, and I just, I don't want to look at what they're doing because I'm jealous. Now if I feel envious, I think to myself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? So I'm going to stop there because I would love to hear people's questions or comments, and yeah, I'm here to be helpful for you, so feel free to ask me anything you'd like.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. On behalf of all attendees, I would sincerely like to thank you for this beautiful and inspiring mentoring talk. I call on all attendees to enter their questions in the Q&A box. Please indicate who you are, where do you come from, what do you do, and I'll be reading these questions, and Professor Harfoush will be answering these questions. So I'll start since you talked about the book written by a nurse. So I'll start with a question from a nursing student, Soline Kevorkian. Her question: should productivity be consistent daily in your opinion? If yes, any tips on how to still be productive on days we are demotivated, lazy?
I hate this word lazy. I think we weaponized it so much against people. So, okay, I have two things to say to this. One, it's not that I think productivity is bad. I don't think being productive is bad. I think that we're using systems to measure productivity that don't make sense for the type of work many of us are doing. So we have borrowed ideas on how to measure performance from the Industrial Revolution, which is why we think productivity has to be nonstop work, why you have to be like productive all the time, because when those systems were being developed, the type of work people did was very different. You were at an assembly line, you were manufacturing something for an 8-hour shift, and like it was very clear. For creative work, for nursing students, for chemistry students, for stuff where you're using your brains, our brain does not work in a consistent way all the time. So it's crazy to expect people to be in a highly productive state 100% of the time when they're working. We have ebbs and flows. You have about 90 minutes worth of cognitive willpower to kind of use, and then your brain needs a little bit of a break, whether it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes. You have to take a break in order to recharge your brain. So my first part of my answer is that our expectations towards productivity is the problem, because we also think that if we're not working, we're being lazy, when in actuality, when you're not working, if you're recharging, that's also a part of the process. The second thing is, as human beings, we have different cycles. Women have different hormonal cycles, we have different energy cycles. And so there are going to be hours of the day and days of the month where we are not at a peak energy. Again, we ebb and we flow. So for me, the answer to your question is, the first thing that you can do is that you can start to get to know yourself. When are you the most productive? When are you the most energetic? How can you work with your energy, not against your energy? So for example, I know that I am a night owl. I love doing work at night. I love writing at night. I love doing stuff at night. And so while I have client obligations that mean I might have to get up early, I try my best to do my admin tasks early in the morning, for example, and save some of the more creative tasks for later. I know that I'm going to be more creative to write in the winter, for example, than in the summer, because in the winter I'm all cozy, and in the summer I like to go out and research and consult and do stuff. So I always ask myself, like, how can I build a system that kind of works for me? And if you work at a job where, so for example, as a nursing student, what you can do is, if you know that it takes you a little while to get started in the morning, you can actually just give yourself an extra 30 minutes when you wake up, which is what I do, to just give your body the chance to wake up, instead of my best friend, who is super productive first thing in the morning. She jumps out of bed and she's ready to go. So just giving myself the time to wake up versus just jumping out of bed and getting started has made an incredible difference in working with my energy. And I actually think that you should look at those cycles, and you should not discount rest. If you need to rest, you're not being lazy. If you're a nursing student, you're not lazy. You've got courses and responsibilities. So no, resting is an important part of taking care of yourself. It's an important part of recharging your brain, and is an important part that helps you make sure that you are super focused and super concentrated when you have to get back to work.
Thank you. This question is from Mary Ann Shaheen, chemistry student at AUB. What goal are you currently working towards?
I'm currently working towards building out some more media. So building out a YouTube channel, building out a podcast. I'm working on another novel. I'm working on another book. So, I've just got a lot of projects that I'm sort of working on all the time. But my main focus for next year is going to be to write a second novel and maybe publish the fourth book. So that's kind of the stuff I'm working on right now.
Thank you. This question is from Stephanie Alater, business student at AUB. For those who struggle with self-worth, how can they measure their accomplishments?
So if you struggle with self-worth, it's funny because in your question, your accomplishments should not impact your self-worth. So self-worth at the very basic level is feeling that you are deserving of love. And every single person is deserving of love. And that's all having self-worth means. It doesn't mean you are a high performer. It doesn't mean you have a lot of accomplishments. I don't care about any of that. And in fact, that's what self-worth and self-love is actually about. It's saying that you, exactly as you are worthy of being loved and of being seen and of being heard. And you don't have to jump through any hoops to do that. So that's the first step. The first step is actually realizing that your accomplishments don't make you any less worthy of love. Whether you fail an exam or ace an exam, that doesn't make you less of a person. That doesn't make you less worthy of love. So the first step is to really just separate yourself from your accomplishments and just focus on building good self-esteem. And that means paying attention to how you talk to yourself, paying attention to how you describe yourself, paying attention to how you prioritize your needs. Are you always mean to yourself when you're thinking to yourself? Are you like, oh man, I'm lazy, I suck, I failed this assignment, I'm an awful person, I'm bad at this, I'm never going to get better? Like, how do you talk to yourself? And would you talk to somebody you loved that way? Would you talk to your best friend that way? So paying attention and building a relationship with yourself is really the first step. And this is what I meant about reparenting. Sometimes reparenting means learning how to reconnect with ourselves, how to love ourselves, how to have confidence with ourselves. Because once you do that, you'll actually develop a confidence that enables you to go out and pursue accomplishments and pursue achievements, knowing that whether you can go big, because whether you fail or succeed, you know that you're worthy. And if you know that you're worthy, it means you can have fun in the process. It means you can try. And even if you fail, even if you submitted a paper and you really tried your best, like, it doesn't shake the foundations of who you are, because you know that you're worthy of love. And I think that building up a good self-worth is like a superpower. It is a secret weapon because it gives you the strength to go out there and try and to push yourselves. Then with accomplishments, I would just say, what am I accomplishing this for? Who am I doing this for? Am I making my parents proud? Am I making myself proud? Am I contributing to the world? And then start measuring it that way. I mean, I have accumulated a lot of professional accomplishments, and you know what? Like, sure, I'm very proud of them, but I don't think they define who I am anymore. And I think that we should all move towards that state, because maybe then the world would be just like a little bit more empathetic and a little bit more understanding.
Thank you. This question is from Khalid Mahyo, a corporate accountant. He has MBA from our sister university, the Lebanese American University. I do face a lot of troubles at work due to title complex, because I'm just a 3-year experienced accountant, but I do face lots of aggressive behavior by higher rank titles. What's best to do?
I mean, if you're in a situation where you can't really look for a more understanding workplace, then what I'll say, the only thing that you could do is to build protection, which is your self-worth, and to realize that what these people are saying and doing has nothing to do with you. And this is another lesson that I've sort of learned. I've learned that there's an expression that says, hurt people, if that makes sense. And so I've sort of found in my experience that people who are genuinely working on themselves and are genuinely confident in their abilities don't treat other people badly. They don't have to. They have nothing to prove. You don't need to make yourself feel good by making somebody else feel bad. So I would really focus on protecting myself, on not taking it personally. And if it gets really bad, I would look at some other opportunities to find another workplace where you are going to be more appreciated. Because, you don't have to. There's lots of toxic work environments out there, and we have to love ourselves enough to be able to say, you know what, I'm not going to tolerate this behavior anymore, to set those boundaries and to move on.
Thank you. This question is from Zena Al Khalil, biology student at AUB. Do you have any tips for time management? Would love to hear how this ties into the theme of productivity.
Sure. So, in terms of time management, my biggest belief is that if you own your calendar, you own your destiny. And one of the mistakes that I see many people do is that they overestimate what they can accomplish and they don't schedule in downtime. They don't actually put in time to rest or time to recharge or time to work out or time to food prep. So they just fill their calendar with back to back to back appointments. And then they wonder why they're not making time to focus on their priority. I have a system which I call, pay yourself first. And that means when I look at my calendar at the beginning of the week, or so on Sundays, I always look at the coming week. I pay myself first by putting in the things that I know are absolutely crucial to my mental and physical well-being. So I will put in my workout, I will put in my time to meal prep, I will put those in the calendar first. And then I'll start building around, client meetings and other obligations. Because I've learned that when I ignore these important blocks of time, that's when my health suffers. And when my health suffers and I get burned out, I'm not producing the best level of work. So I think for time management tips, you should actually be making sure that your to-do list is realistic. There's no point in saying, I'm going to do 43 things today if it's just not possible to accomplish 43 things today. And two, it's to put in your recovery periods into your calendar, to put in everything that you're doing in your calendar. I put in rest times, I block off weekends, because if you're not intentional with your downtime, you'll just run from thing to thing to thing, and you'll never give yourself the time to recharge. And I think that from a productivity perspective, as I mentioned earlier, resting is not a deviation of high performance. When you take a rest, you're not pursuing your goals. When you take a rest, you're recharging so that you can pursue your goals. And we've just been taught to believe that any time not spent working or any time not spent sacrificing or hustling is a waste. But in actuality, the neuroscience research shows that if you don't rest and replenish regularly, it's going to take you longer to finish your work. You're going to make more mistakes and the quality isn't going to be as good.
Thank you. This question is from Dr. Hala Abu Asi. She's currently a postdoc at Duke University. Good to see you, Hala. Hala was our student in the department years ago. In fact, yesterday's Nobel Prize winner of medicine or physiology was our student at AUB in 1985 to 1986, Professor Ardem Patopoutian, and he transferred because of the war. No pressure, Hala, but we're waiting for the Nobel Prize. So her question, what advice can you give us in terms of planning and preparing to-do lists? I always tend to expect a lot and have a long to-do list. And of course, when you don't end up scratching out all what is on the list of that day, you feel disappointed.
Yeah, so continuing on the previous question, I think a lot of people don't actually know how long it takes them to do something. So human beings will often underestimate how long it takes them to do something and overestimate how much they can get done. So one of the best tips I can give you is that for like a week or two, start timing yourself with your phone and just start to see how long does it actually take me to write a paper, to answer emails, to just to get a sense of it. Because if you think, oh, I can answer these emails in 30 minutes, but it's really taking you 90 minutes, then you just don't have that context. So you are just giving yourself a disadvantage by trying to shove something in an unrealistic time frame. So what you want to do is you want to start measuring things. So for example, as a writer, I have just learned that it takes me, like when I want to write a chapter, that it takes me a certain number of hours at each stage. And I did that because I did exactly what I suggested. I timed myself to see just on average how long it takes me to do stuff. So one, it's to time yourself and to look at your list and be like, what is the actual cost of time for this task? And do I have time to do it? And then the second is going back to the calendar, is it doesn't make any sense for you to just have a to-do list. Put your to-do list right in your calendar so you can see how much time that it's going to take. Okay, so I need to return something from Amazon. Okay, well, is that going to take you 15 minutes? When in your day are you going to do it? Because what ends up happening is we have a list that's just floating, and we somehow think that at some point in the day, we're going to find time to do it instead of saying, I'm going to do this task at this time, at this day. And finally, from an audit perspective, you have to be realistic with yourself. If you are consistently not getting to the end of the to-do list at the end of the day, it means there's a problem somewhere. Either you're not estimating the time or you're overestimating what you can get done. So you want to just like try to focus on a list that makes sense. And finally, I'll give you a really good tip. It's called the 1-3-5 tip, which is you focus on one big thing that's going to move your goals forward, 3 medium things that are important but not super urgent, and then 5 little things. Because the other thing that I don't like about to-do lists is that if you don't prioritize the tasks, you might do 15 tasks and feel really good because you're scratching them off your list, but none of those tasks are actually helping you tackle some of the big projects that you're working on. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes I look at the list and I'll be like, I'm going to do these like 5 really easy things, but they're not actually getting me closer to completing a goal. So 1-3-5 is really helpful because you start with your most important task of the day, and then you know no matter what happens at the rest of your day, you're taking steps to move your progress forward.
Thank you. A couple more questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. So this question is from Anis Amir, a UB master student from the Arabic department. How did you make sure that your ego is not again into the process of reparenting?
How did I make sure that my ego was not getting into the process of reparenting? Well,
If
yeah.
I may, perhaps he's asking in general, not to you particularly. How is somebody's ego will not be in the process of reparenting?
I mean, your ego is absolutely going to be in the process of reparenting. That's the whole point. So you have to understand that what you're doing is you're going to try to get to know yourself, but to also find your responses. So ego responses are denial, resistance, anger. So if you are, if you are experiencing these things, that's your ego. And the only way that you can make sure that it doesn't get, that your ego doesn't take over is when you do these processes, they give you questions to ask that let you engage with it. You don't want to suppress your ego. It's just about understanding yourself a bit better. It's about being kind with yourself. I'm a firm believer in working with mental health professionals if you need. I think everybody at some point in their lives should go and do some therapy, to just do like a tune-up, the same way a car gets a tune-up, to just say, hey, I've been alive on this planet for this many years. I'd love to poke around and make sure that all the beliefs that are in my head are serving me and are helping me instead of holding me back. But so with reparenting, the books that I'm reading really encourage you through guided exercises, whether it's journaling or meditating or asking yourself questions. Like, it guides you on how you can face your ego. But I think you know yourself. And I think if you get to a really vulnerable place where you feel safe and you're like, I am worthy of love no matter what my ego says. I am worthy of love even with all my bad points and my bad traits and my bad habits. Then all of a sudden a little piece of you says, okay, it's okay for me to take a look at this part, even though it might be uncomfortable or painful. And the thing about self-love is it's really like radical self-acceptance. It's understanding that you are the totality of your best habits and your worst habits, that you are no less lovable for your bad habits than for your good habits, and that you can be selfless and selfish, you can be happy and sad, you can be sarcastic and kind, you can be those things simultaneously and still be worthy of love, because it is the totality of your experience as a human that makes you worthy of love. And once you understand that then your ego won't try to protect you. I don't do this. I'm never selfish. I'm never wrong. I don't fail, because your ego, because you understand, the self that is you understands that you can be all those things and still be worthy of acceptance and love. And that is the process that we're constantly engaging in.
Thank you very much. Now, this is a rebuttal follow-up question from Mary Ann Shaheen. Isn't it being hard on yourself crucial to push yourself to be the best version of yourself from all aspects? She's challenging you, apparently.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. There is a difference between having discipline and pushing yourself and, pushing yourself to be better, and being unkind to yourself. And too often we push ourselves with meanness. We repeat words and phrases that were said to us that were critical of us. We say, "You're not good enough. Why did you fail? How you're so dumb. You're a failure. You're never going to succeed." Let me tell you something. That's not helpful to anything. That's not helpful to anyone or anything to talk to yourself that way. There's a difference between discipline, which is I've committed to myself that I'm going to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning and go to the gym. That is commitment to myself. That is me making a promise to myself. That is an act of self-love, saying that I'm going to uphold the promise to myself. Than it is me being like, "You're a fat slob and you should be going to the gym every day because you suck and your body sucks and your body's awful and nobody's going to want to look at you." So I really think that we can get to a core of motivation from a place of self-compassion and love, because in the long term, that's what's going to get you further. I have been more successful in the years that I have learned, and I'm still learning, by the way, just in case anybody has any misconceptions. I am still an enormous work in progress, and I still fall off the wagon, and I still go back into bad habits, but it's just about continuing to try. But I have gotten more success by being kinder to myself. I've accomplished more things. I've grown my business. I've earned more money. I've gotten more professional recognition by being kind to myself than I ever did by being somebody who was like mean to myself. And there were times in my life where I was very mean to myself.
I have a comment that somebody is not able to hear. Are you guys able to hear, the rest of you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, but
Okay.
actually, Dr. Suha Kanj wrote that she is not able to hear. Do you have any questions, Dr. Kanj? Thank you for joining us. She's infectious disease expertise here at AUB.
Oh, wow. What a
Um,
time. What a time to be an infectious disease
oh
expert.
yeah, oh yeah, she's amazing. So I mentioned in my remarks that you have left Syria without going into any politics. We don't do that on this platform. How hard was it for you to leave? And at the same time, as you said, you consider yourself lucky enough that you caught the train, that new opportunities have opened up for you. So this conflict between, like, a new horizon for you and at the same time leaving your home country.
Yeah, I think this is what I mean about luck. Like, there are so many things in our lives that just happen by chance, and things that are absolutely out of control. It was very difficult for me to see what was happening in the country, and to see how many people were being killed or were dying, and to think to myself, if my parents had made a different choice, that could have been me. And I think it's this understanding that we all need to have, not just about Syria, but about everything that's happening in the world today, to really look and realize that it's only because of luck and random chance that it's not us. And for me, it has helped me try to become a more compassionate person towards all the hardships that we see around us. I mean, think what happened in Lebanon, what's happening in Haiti, what's happening all over the world. There are so many people, and I think to myself, I could have been born in that country. I could have been born to that family. I could have been born to a different father and mother that decided that they weren't going to immigrate to Canada, that they were going to go somewhere else. And so it is really hard sometimes because you think to yourself, I'm so lucky and it seems so unfair that luck helped me create a life that I'm really proud of, and that it's not just because of hard work. And I think that keeps, for me, it keeps me, it's humility, right? It keeps you being humble, because every time I think to myself, wow, which is not often, but every time I think to myself, like, wow, I worked so hard. I deserve all my successes because I worked so hard. I have to stop and I have to say, like, yes, I worked hard, but there are so many people in the world that don't have the same opportunity that would have worked just as hard. And so that's not to take away from my accomplishments. It's just to recognize that it's too easy in the world to just pat ourselves on the back and say, I worked hard, therefore I'm successful. And instead, we should just say, I worked hard, but I'm also so lucky and grateful to be successful, because we don't know, it could change in a day. It could change. You take a decision one day and your entire life takes a different turn. And I think a part of that is also about like being in the moment and being very grateful for what you have, and understanding that every minute is a gift. Every minute that we have to live is a gift. So that's sort of how it's impacted me, because I look back and I think to myself, I see myself in my brothers and sisters that are all over the world. And that's something that we have to grapple with.
When did you leave Syria? In which year?
Oh, ages ago, ages ago, in the 90s.
Okay. So that was way before the conflict. So here, Muhammad Subrawi, who's the IT person, he's not able to put the question in the Q&A. He sent it to me by WhatsApp. He said that you are planning to initiate network learning like YouTube, podcasts. How do you encourage these innovative ideas? Any strategic steps to reach your set goals regarding this?
Yeah, I think that we are so lucky to live in a world where so much information is accessible. I have just been in learning mode. So I look at channels that are doing really well and I analyze them. How often do they post? What videos? How long? What content does well? What do people look up? What are people searching for? What questions do I get from events like these? And so I think that there is such an opportunity for you to learn by observation. I find people that I admire and I sign up to their newsletters and I follow their channels, and then I learn. I look and I learn, and then I think, how can I use this? And so for me, it's an understanding that, again, luck has a lot to do with it, but like it's understanding that I need to build up a content plan. I need to create a good market strategy. I need to understand what my goal is. I need to understand who my audience is and what they want and how I can help them. And then from there, I'm putting together like a strategy of how to publish things and how to do things. And again, like Google, YouTube, Canva, there's so many tools out there that you can use for free that you can learn so much information. So that's what I'm hoping to do, and I'm getting started soon. And so I've just been in learning mode, just trying to figure it out. And now I'm going to go into experiment mode, knowing that I could very well fail and that nobody will watch my videos, and like that's okay. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm learning and growing, it's all good.
Well, with that, I want to sincerely thank you for this beautiful, inspiring mentoring talk. On behalf of all attendees, I really appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. I know how hard it was to coordinate and finally find the time to host you. It has been such a pleasure. I look forward to hosting you here in person at AUB. We have a beautiful campus. I don't know if you had the chance before to visit AUB, but hopefully we will have in the future. And on behalf of all attendees, I thank you for this beautiful talk. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Thank you. And to all our attendees, thank you for joining us. Until our next mentoring talk, so long. Thank you. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.